Good evening, everyone. We will be starting the session in 2 minutes, so do call all your friends to join in if they haven't already. So, guys, how is your hacking experience up till now? Is it good? Anybody wants to share their experiences in the chat section? In case of any doubt, do head over to our Discord server. We have a team of amazing mentors to guide you through all your doubts. ISTE-VIT is excited to welcome you all to today's section on Insights on User Experience. ISTE-VIT is a national student chapter which imparts technical education to all engineers and technicians so that they become exceptional professionals. For all the participants present with us, we have a giveaway during this session. So make sure you keep an eye out for the questions and stand a chance to win amazing swags. To impart his deep knowledge and experience in the field of product development and design, we have with us Mr. Vaibhav Gupta. He's working as a senior UX designer and product manager at a PaaS-based web platform. With his architectural academic background and his passion for technology, he has amalgamated these two fields of work and focuses on building user-friendly, market-driven, yet aesthetic products. We're super thrilled to have you here with us, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Kavita, for having me, and thanks for the wonderful introduction. So today I will be talking to everyone about designing for the real world. Let me quickly jump to the presentation now. Just let me know when you can see my screen.
Yes, sir.
Is the presentation visible to everyone?
Not yet, sir.
All right. So I believe it's visible now.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so hi everyone. Today I will be talking about designing for the real world. And what do I mean by it is that the challenges which you face while designing actual products in professional practice might differ a bit from what we do in academic settings. So we will discuss some challenges, methodologies, and the way in which we tackle design problems. And so all the concepts today which we'll talk about, they are very much domain independent. They are as applicable to UX as they are to architecture, product design, or any other domain. But for the sake of this presentation, I will limit my talk to mostly UX design and its applications. So let's quickly jump on to things which we are going to talk about today. So today I'll talk about three basic things. First is fundamentals of UX design. So what we mean by UX design and what are the challenges in this profession, a bit about its history and all of those basic things. Then how do we approach a design problem and how does design thinking come into play? Finally, for the hackathon participants, we have a section for evaluating design. So how do you evaluate your own design to know that whether you are going in the right direction or not? So let me start with asking you a question, like, what do you mean by UX? So I just want this session to be very interactive. So if you have any ideas, notions about the term UX, please add in the comments so that I get to know where we are coming from. Do we have anything? I'll wait for a minute. Okay, so let's make it a bit interesting. So just tell me, what is the full form of term UX and who coined this term? And let's make it today's giveaway question. So what is the full form of term UX and who coined the term UX? Okay, I see there are many people who gave the correct answer about the full form of UX, but who is credited to the discovery of this term, or who was the first person to use this term? Okay, so I'll move on. UX, as you all have told, that stands for user experience. And Don Norman, who was the author of the book Design of Everyday Things, was the first person to have used this term. And by the way, Design of Everyday Things is a great book for anyone and everyone who is interested in this field. And I personally recommend all of you to read it whenever you get a chance. So now coming back uh, to definition of UX. Now UX essentially means designing for the experience of users. But this is also one of the most misinterpreted term of the design field. Before we get into that, let me clarify what is the definition of UX. So here it comes. UX design is a process aiming at enhancing experience of users using a product or service through design intervention. Now, there are too many things in this definition. What is enhancing experience and intervention? So let's take all of those things and break this definition down into multiple parts. So coming back, UX design is a process aiming at enhancing. By enhancing, we means improving as compared to before. The experience of users. Now, what does experience actually mean? Experience, when we talk about experience in design, we mean overall emotion of a person who is using your product or service. Now, that experience is not limited to five senses. It is not limited to how your product looks like, how does it feel while touching, its texture, visual appeal, color, aesthetic, all of that. No, it is much beyond that. Experience is everything which goes before even someone has started using your product or service, while they are using it, and ends much after that. So let me give you an example. So let's say if you go to a store to buy a mobile phone, you see the mobile phone in the rack of that store. You just want it from that much distance. You take it in your hand, it feels good. You buy it, you bring it to your home, unpack it, you pull it out of the box. That entire thing is the experience of the phone, which we have to design for. It's not just the phone, its feature, its interface, colors. No, it ends much beyond that. And after using it for 3 to 4 years, when you discard it, you have a lot of memories with that thing associated. So next time when you are trying to buy a new phone, you want something which was similar to, which gives you a similar experience to your last product. So this is the experience which we are talking about. So the experience of using a product or service through design interventions. And by interventions, we mean changes, improvement, addition, or entire design process in which we can tweak the experience or make the most of it. So UX is essentially designing for human experiences, but in practical world, this is not the only expectation from a UX designer. There are many more things which we have to cater to. If you are talking about UX designer as a profession, UX design will mean designing for experiences, building ease, business feasibility, and legalities plus compliances. So let's talk about each of these things one by one. First is user experience, which we have just discussed, that how is the overall experience of the person using that product. Second is building ease. Let's say you design something and there's a team responsible to build it. If you are designing a website, there's a development team. If you're building a product, there's an engineering team, and all of those cases. But if you design something which is not easy to build, or which is too costly, or not feasible to build, it cannot reach the end user. So building is also part of design, which we have to cater to. Not just the user experience, how these things get built is also the role of UX designer. And third is business feasibility. Now, if you're building something, it must have some sort of business value if you're working in a corporate or a company. Now, this is a factor which I have personally seen most of the designers actually negate, that business is something which management or business people will take care of. But actually, it is very much an aspect of design, because if you cater to business needs within your design, it becomes easier to incorporate user experience and business need together. But sometimes what happens is designers do not design for these things, and later just marketing people will fill those your website with the ads and all of those things. So instead, you should provide for that opportunity. You have to understand that if business is not sufficed, you won't get paid. And finally, there are legalities and compliances which we have to look for. So as a recent example, you would have heard about the European Union regarding the Privacy Act, so which said that if some website is asking for your data, the user should be able to opt in or opt out at any time when they feel like. So you would have seen most websites asking you to accept cookies or change cookie settings and all of those things. This is also something which we have to look for. Now, why is UX important? Again, I would like to hear from you guys, like, why do you think UX is important? There are many ways why companies invest into so much into UX these days. Apple is a classic example. Google also invests a lot. They have their entire team just for enhancing the UX. So why invest? Now, there are many reasons, but in my experience and research, these are the four main purposes why companies invest in UX. So first thing is it makes product or service serves its purpose. People respect things that respect them. So let's say if you're building something, it has a lot of features. For example, let's talk about washing machines. Now, every washing machine, if you have used some, there are a lot of buttons and you don't know how to even use half of those functions. Same goes with microwaves, television remotes, and all of those things. So is it even a good idea to give users those functions which they cannot essentially use? So investing in UX means that you have cater for all of those things, making functionality more accessible. So if you give a feature which someone cannot use, that is equally useless as not giving a function at all. So investing in UX means you cater to those requirements, make product actually usable, make those features actually accessible to everyone. Second, it improves business. Happy customers pay more. So there are cases where by just giving better products to the company, to the customers, company add to the value they provide. So good UX isn't just about how users, uh, the value which users gain, but also which company provide to it, and at the end of the day, they get income out of it. Third is high return on investment. So good UX means more users per unit of efforts put in building the product. We have just discussed about building ease, that how easy or simple is it to build a product is also something which falls in the domain of UX. So as a UX designer, you are not just adding value for the customer, you are also reducing the development resources and cost. So you are actually adding the efficiency of the user retention by reducing cost and adding the value. And fourth is satisfied customer. Like when you have satisfied customer, they turn from customers to patrons. Brand loyalty is a thing these days. If you do not believe me, try arguing with the Apple fan that Apple products are not good. Even though you have valid points, they might not agree with you. This is because Apple has provided that much value that they successfully managed to convert the paying customers into patrons. So yes, this is a power of good UX. Now we have discussed all these things, that what UX is all about, why companies invest in UX, and all of those things. Now the next step which comes in, how do we actually approach a UX or design problem in general? So there are, whenever you start with a design problem, there is a beginning that you get a problem to work on. It has a certain brief, and then there is a final direction in which you need to, which is the solution space. So everything which goes between those two areas is the entire design process. And design process actually varies from person to person, companies to companies, product to product. So there is no single universally accepted process that if you follow this step, you get a great product. There's no such thing. So, but you would also have came across a term called design thinking. Now, what design thinking does is, design thinking is also a process which aims at streamlining this entire process and breaking down into 5 major steps. So the 5 steps of design thinking are empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. So what it does is, essentially it takes the gist of the entire process, break down into simple manageable parts, and you can use these parts as per the requirement of your project or product, whatever it is. These things are not linear. They do not have to be go from empathize to define to ideate. No, these are not linear, and this is very much iterative. So let's talk about each of these aspects one by one and see how things start falling in place. So I'll begin with empathize. Give me a sec. Sorry. Okay. So empathize means understanding and empathizing with your users. So if we have to break down this term into multiple parts, first would be understanding users. You have to identify whom you're designing for and what problems are you responding to. So also research upon cultural and ethnographic, societal, economic context of this problem is also very useful. So let's say if you are designing for some age group of people who are elderly, let's say someone belonging to age group of 60 plus, their needs, their expectation, their technological capabilities might be different from a teenager. So you have to be very clear about whom you're designing for, what they are expecting from that design, what are their constraints, limitation, and all of those. Second is understanding user needs. Often what is needed is left unsaid. So this is also a classic example that we have to create our own brief as designers. Let me give you an example in this one. We have telephones since 19th century, and in last 10 years we started shifting to text based messaging apps, WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, and all of those things. Now if we think pragmatically, voice to voice communication is far more advanced. It gives you it is more technologically more capable. You can directly send your voice, you do not have to type and each and everything. But it was invented earlier, and this text-based messaging system, which is rather simple in terms of technology and easier to do, this came in later. So when voice-to-voice communication existed, what was the need of a text-based messaging system? Or if it came, why did it thrive so much? The simple reason was there were some unsaid issues with voice-based communication. Let's say if we are talking on a phone, I have to respond immediately. I cannot take a pause. I cannot think about it. Yeah, and if I'm doing a discussion which is very important, I cannot record it. Even if I can record it, it's not easy for me to just jump to that part, due to which text-based communication came and thrived. People did not know that they needed such services before they came. So you have to understand what are the needs which are unsaid and where you can see the potential of your product. Second is decode the demands. Do they really want what they are asking for? To explain this, I think the quote by Henry Ford goes best. Henry Ford was the founder of Ford Motors, and he said that if I would have asked people what they actually need, they would have said faster horses, because at the time people were not aware of the concept of car or motor vehicles, and horse-based carts were the only way of transportation. So faster horses means faster transportation, but no, uh, which is why Ford Motor introduced the cars and finally make it inclusive. So this also happens in many cases, that due to our own subconscious biases, we tend to leave out a certain section of people while designing our products. So let's say a very common example which I see in most portfolios and in real practice as well. If we are designing an app and which has color-based indicator, okay, red means there's a issue, green means it's a success. Some people do not take these as primary cues, which means that if the person who is using your app is colorblind, he or she cannot understand what's going on, because the color is the only cue. So Are we actually leaving out some set of people while making a decision? So in this thing, in the empathize step, it is very important to understand your users, make it inclusive, and understand their needs. So if you have that defined, then and only then you should move to next step, which is define. Now, once you have understood the problems and you have a clear idea of where you want to go, next step comes is detailing out the problem. You add those on-site requirements, constraints, expectation of the users, and then try to make it workable. By making it workable, it means you do not just go about that we need to improve communication. You have to make an actionable plan that how can I make communication simpler. Can I introduce another way of interaction? Let's say if I want to go away with the idea of voice-based communication and introduce text-based, so users must be able to text instantly. They might need to add photos and share videos and all of those things, so I need to cater to them. Once you have that basic idea in place, you should ideally communicate that with other members of the team. So at this step, I recommend like every designer to communicate this idea with each and every stakeholder who is responsible for building the product. So whether it is a developer, product manager, product owner, whosoever he or she is, the communication is a key, because each and everyone will bring their inputs from their part of the world, and chances are you might have missed something which they have to offer. So communicate it. And finally, plan for future. Let's say today you are designing a messaging app, so you do not want to end at text to text based communication. You might want to introduce video calling in future, group calling, and all of those. But you just cannot start with all of those things. They take time, they take resources. So ideally what we do in real practices, we plan for future needs, but we create a MVP, which is minimum viable product. It means that we make a bundle of all the features which we want or which we are looking for in the final thing, and try to bring the bare essentials which we can launch in market. So once we launch those things, we get users using our product, we get our name out, then we keep on adding all those features which were the part of our future requirements. So one more thing, a pitfall which I have seen many designers fall into is asking the users what their needs are. Sorry, what their solution to the problem is. So uh, there are surveys where I see that people are asking, if you get this feature, would you be more happy? Or if you get this feature, it make your life easier? The thing is, people are not good at defining these things, or telling what would make them happy before they have actually experienced it. So this is also feel good factor. One classic example in this case was the Amazon and how it entered in India. So the time Amazon came in India, there were few other e-commerce websites which existed, but they actually kind of ruined the experience for the Indian users, because every time someone would want to buy something, they had to pay online in advance, but the product would take 2 to 3 weeks, and often the product which would come up to them was wrong or badly damaged or even misplaced. So Amazon realized that Indian customers, due to all that experience, are not in favor of online buying. They wanted the real touch and feel of these things. So they came up with the idea of cash on delivery and 10-day return policy. Now, what that gave is it gave the freedom to the user to actually touch the product before paying, and even if they are not satisfied, they can return it. So this is also one thing where no one actually came to Amazon and told that, okay, we want cash on delivery. This is what Amazon came with, and now every customer wants that. So customers are not good at guessing features, they are good at giving you feedback. Next is ideate. Once you have defined the problem and you have basic idea of the direction where you want to go, then you have to research for it. By research, the classic cases are looking for similar products, conducting case studies, interviews, and talking to users, and study on behavioral aspect. So, and another second point in this is creating solutions. So, at this point, you do not have to try to get things and make things perfect. Like, you should not even aim for perfection at this point. Just try to bring in all your ideas, all your constraints at the medium you like. If you are more comfortable with pen and paper, go sketch. If you are more comfortable with digital tools, make a prototype, make a wireframe, whatever it is, make it faster and make it more communicative. So bring in your rough ideas and try, experiment, fail, try, experiment, fail. Keep it going till you have something which is nearest to where you want to be. And once you have that, communicate it with team, invite feedback at this point, because and feedback after this point will hurt you more than whatever you have at this stage. So try to get as much feedback as you can, bring in more viewpoints, and then once you have everything in place, move on to prototype. Now, prototype means you have to add details to whatever initial product you had in place. So add all of those fringe cases. What if a user wants to delete a photo he or she uploaded? What if they want to tag someone? What if they want to do this, that? Whatever minute details are, think of it, add cases, think of all the fringe cases, and then try to make a realistic prototype. If you're building a digital product, you can use online tools available like Figma, XD, and all of those. If you're making an actual product like a physical hardware, try to go into a workshop and get your hands dirty, make something and see how it works. Because um, there are times when actually building something makes you realize that how it's actually going to use. And finally, test, seek feedback. Like once you have this product, show it to users, maybe conduct A or A/B testing. A/B testing essentially means that you create two versions of a product and show those versions to different set of people and see which version get more positive response and implement that as a mainstream mode. And second, be agile. At this stage, the chances are you might go really well or you might fail completely. So you have to understand that if it fails, you have to be very quick in tracing back your steps and changing whatever necessary changes are, and adapting, find ways to make this like become turn into success. So yes, once you have that, you might realize that design thinking is not a linear process and it's not one size fits all. It might work in some cases, and in other cases, after testing, you might realize that, okay, the defined state was not solid. So you might want to go back to that. So it is very iterative in nature and non-linear. Now, let's, so till now we have discussed fundamental of UX and we have discussed how do we approach design problems. For the final section, I will talk a bit about evaluating design. So how do we evaluate design? How do we say that this design is better or it is trying to solve whatever problems it intended to? So there is no short method to do so. Like there is no way that we can guarantee that a product will be is going to success before we have seen it. But there are some factors which does help us evaluating and improving the chance of those predictions which we make. So I do have a checklist for all the hackathon participants, which they can refer to while presenting their solution. So let's talk about each of these things one by one. First is, what problem is design trying to solve, and is the medium of design apt for solution? What problem is design trying to solve? This is a part which should be as clear to you as it is to juror. So not only you have to be very crystal clear about what you are trying to do, you have to explain it very clearly. Your solution should actually reflect that the problem is real and that attempt which you are making at solving that problem is very needed or required by the user, and is medium of design apt for the solution. Um, this is a point where I would like to talk about how we are designing apps these days. I have reviewed hundreds of portfolios during the hiring process at my company, and I see that in most cases, people generally take any problem whatsoever and see app as a solution to it. Now, app is one of the medium of doing things. which is very powerful than the traditional method. Initially you could paint, you could dance, and all of those things to express. And then we came to apps. Now in app you can communicate with user, you can interact, you can ask them, seek their information, give them information. So it is one of the most powerful medium which we are known to today. But it is not a one-stop solution to each and every problem in the life. If there's a place which is suffering from scarcity of water, maybe app is not the right answer. It might be a part of solution, but creating an app and thinking that okay, water problem is solved, that is not a right way to think about it. And second, to what extent does the proposed solution solves the problem? In doing so, does it create a new set of problem? This I can explain this best by giving you an example of a case study which I recently went through. So there was this project by a student, and it was a portfolio project. Um, what he started with was talking about a tribal community in Africa. So in that community, they do not wear footwears. So they were known to walk bare feet, and what he tried to do was understand their requirements and then propose a footwear solution to it. So it was really good research about that community and about that space, and he saw really valid points about their need for footwears. But after all this research, the case study actually talked more about the aesthetic of the footwear. So they took a regular Hawaiian slipper and talked about the colors and the cultural values and the typeface used in the logo of making that product. And at that point, my concern was the color of the slipper or the logo or the typeface used the only concern for that community? I looked into his research. I followed all the links which he had shared in his presentation, and I realized that the community which he was referring to would not wear footwears because they used to spend most of their time climbing trees. So no footwear actually gives you more flexibility while climbing a tree than bare feet. So if you're designing something, you have to cater to that requirement. If someone is climbing on trees, it should be kind of sticky, but it should also allow your feet to expand so that you get more surface area. Giving a Hawaiian slipper as a solution to this is not the right justification. So that is another thing. And third, is the solution accessible and acceptable to all intended user groups, including users from various age groups, gender, ethnicity, cultural background, physical capabilities, and literacy levels? So by this, what we mean is that, let's say if you are designing something for elderly people and you made an app where they could interact and all of those things, but the app is very complicated in terms of usage. So my grandparents might not be even comfortable using a smartphone. So making an app for that kind user group, is that the best solution? So you have to think about it. Am I excluding some people in using that? Am I whatever solution I am proposing, is that even culturally acceptable? So if you are a fashion designer and you are designing for in Middle East countries, you have to respect their cultural values. If you're designing for India, there is a different sentiment with clothing, and you have to respect that. Finally, also, does the solution provide good experience to its user? Again, it all boils down to how does a person feels while, before, and after using a product. Is the net experience of that very positive? Is it very confusing? Is it tiring, scary? What it is that. And if you're working in professional practice, the last 3 points are applicable to you. First is design scalable. So this is mostly applicable for projects with multiple goals. So let's say if you are starting with MVP and you want to scale to future, does your project actually allows you to scale to that capabilities? One good example in this case is IGTV, introduced by Instagram. Now, Instagram by design limited its feature to 5 options. So if you wanted to add IGTV, there was no space left for that. So that is one constraint. Um, Another is it buildable given the technical capabilities of teams and their limitation? This is something which we have already discussed. If your product is not buildable, it is not a solution at all. And finally, does it cater to business need? This is applicable if you're working in a professional setting, and might not work for, or might not be required for hackathon participants. But yes, if you are working in a professional setting, this is one of the primary factors which you need to address to. So with this, I will end my presentation, and if there are any questions, we can jump to that. Okay, so do we have any questions?
Yes, sir. The first one was how a user interacts with and experiences a product.
How user interacts with and experiences of a product.
I
Okay,
guess the continue, sir.
okay, so I think experience starts before users even start interacting with the product. As I told you in the example of mobile phone, when you go to store, you see that product. You might have even heard about it. Something. Let's say Apple is going to launch a new iPhone. You hear about it. You start building the kind of expectations with you. You go see the product, you buy it, then you start interacting with it. So experience need not is not very much dependent on interaction. Interaction is a part, but it is not limited to. So experience start before interacting and ends much after that.
So the next one would be as the design. Riddhi says, as the designers, what would we consider to bring the balance between simplicity and technicality?
What would you consider to bring balance between simplicity and technicality? Uh, like I'm not sure what she's trying to ask here. Like, is she talking about ways in which we can ensure the balance, or
I
like
guess
how
so.
do we
That's
prioritize
what she
between the
means.
two? What is the exact question?
I guess so. She means how do we, maintain the balance between two? Like how do we maintain, keep the website simple yet not go more technically deep into it?
So actually, it is very interesting question if we put it that way. There is also there is a theory which talk about that complexity of a system remains constant. So if you are building a product and it has some natural set of complexity, so either you can make the development part of it simple by introducing complex part to the user, or you can make the user part simpler by making it more complex from the backend. So simplicity and complexity always go hand in hand. Like you just cannot uh, make a product extremely simple and with all the features. If and while building these, we also have to think of the user group which we are using. So let's say if I'm a graphic designer and I have too much of requirements about how I'm very particular about how image should look like, the color, the value, hues, and all of those things. Maybe Photoshop is a good option. It is complex, but it gives me all the freedom. Now, say if there's someone who is not a graphic designer and they just want basic crop, filters, and all of those things, Canva is an option. They make it simple by reducing some functionality. So it is always give and take, and this is very much dependent on user needs.
So the next one would be on what should we spend more time on, ideating or implementation of design?
I think ideating is like defining the structure. In terms of building, it is where you define columns and all of those things. Once ideation is strong, you know that the flow is in place, structure is in place, you can make changes. So in my experience, ideating is a part which needs more attention even than making the final prototype.
Yes, sir. So Ved asks, how do designers work functionally with developers and project managers?
This is actually interesting question because there's no one way of doing things. See, as designer, when you bring your ideas and opinions on table, there are developers and project manager which who have their own experiences and their own understanding of things. So this set of people we have to deal very differently. So let's say you present your idea to a team. So a developer might give his or her views on the same. So first thing is you have to understand what they are trying to get it. In 90% cases, chances are that you might have missed something which they caught upon, and they want them to incorporate. So once you are sure that, okay, that's not the case, this is something which I thought about, but it's not a good solution, then second is you need to try to convince them or explain them your reasoning. And this is a place where things get tricky. Sometimes it turns into clashes and all of. But the idea is that at the end of the day, you are building a product. It's not a developer's product. It's not a designer's product. That it is a product, and the good design will always sustain, because if you even take a bad design, user will let you know that, okay, this is not working for us. So this is always a complex dynamic, and it also varies from person to person.
Yeah, yes, sir. I agree to
Okay.
that. So UX
Are there more?
research, yeah, yes, sir. There are more. How does UX research engage stakeholders? Like, how is the process going around?
Am I audible?
Yes, sir. I guess sir is facing some network issues. Please bear with us for 2 minutes. By the time sir joins us, I would like to tell us about the giveaway winner that we have for this YouTube live. The winner for our giveaway is Lakshya Singhal. Congratulations on winning amazing swags. Oh,
Hi, sorry
so
about
can you
that.
hear me? It's okay, sir. So should we continue with the Q&A session? By continuing for the Q&A session, so Kunal asks, what roadmap a student should take if he wants to learn designing in a stepwise manner?
Designing in a stepwise manner. I actually do not believe in like following a step by step, that okay, you have to first learn this and then you have to jump into that. In my own experience, and my own personal preference, I believe in diving right in. My first internship was a graphic design internship, and I kind of bluffed that I knew all the tools they asked for. You just jump in and see what it needs to sustain you. So once you get hang of all of those things, you start building more upon that. So my personal style is diving right into it. Just fake it till you make it. This is like what works in actual world. So but yes, if you want a step-by-step thing, first is you should look upon some of the boot camps or the courses which you find online. Try learning those things, but try learning doing those things by doing something. Take a simple project to build for your portfolio, and if possible, try to look for an internship. So internship is also one way, because it is less investment for a company, so it's easier to get, but it also reduces some burden. You can do good and get promoted, but if you do not meet their expectation, there's nothing to lose. So yes, internship or online boot camps are a good way to start into this, but I sincerely recommend you to dive in.
Okay, so that's all for the question and session right now. It was a pleasant having you here with us, sir. The session really shed light on product development and UI design, and which has really and truly guided the young minds present with us in all sense. Thank you, sir, for joining
I'm
us.
glad. Thank you so much.
So, for the participants present with us, we have some amazing news for you all. We have some unique and gripping raffles for our participants to win. To win each of them, to to win such amazing tags, we would want to, for winning our best Instagram post, we would want you to first follow our Instagram page, Then tag us in your stories and posts with under the hashtag Technica21. In case your accounts are private, do make sure to DM us your posts or story screenshots. We also give out school zippers in just 3 easy steps. Use this filter by ISTE-VIT and post it in your stories and tag us. We also have another amazing offer for you all. Draw an AutoCAD, win an AutoCAD challenge, wherein all you need to do is doodle an AutoCAD in any format and tweet it to GitHub Education using my AutoCAD hashtag, and on Instagram post it under Technica21 hashtag and stand a chance to win amazing AutoCAD figurines. We also have the most active hacker challenge, wherein you just need to take part in our all our mini events, submit your hack projects on time, stay active on our Discord server, and post stories and posts and tagging us in ISTE-VIT Vellore. ISTE-VIT Vellore. Thank you all. I would also like to mention that this extravaganza is yet to end. So stay tuned for an exciting upcoming session on Magic of Surveillance of AWS presented by our esteemed guest speaker, Subin Devnath. And make sure to follow us on all our Instagram handles for further updates. Thank you all for joining.